Hello. Today I'm all set to give you a live on 10,000-foot view of giant media and what is going on. Here's the thing. A lot of us are, of course, using social media, and you may or may not have thoughts about it. However, it is an incredibly, massively interesting time, particularly in the United States and globally. And here's the deal that I want to tell you. You may think it doesn't matter because you're just playing with your phone, right? You might be one who says to me, because I've heard it, Sherry, that just doesn't really matter because I just use social media a little bit. You might be one who says, gosh, I wasn't on TikTok. Like I wasn't on TikTok. So I'm not one who, that comment alone, I'm going to tell you, makes you sound geriatric. And geriatric doesn't necessarily mean an age. It can mean unaware. So when we say something like, oh my gosh, who cares about this TikTok ban, or I wasn't on it, so it doesn't matter. This is what this is sounding like in a 10,000 view situation in the world today. It sounds like, oh, I am never going to use electricity in my life. That is just a dumb, stupid idea. I mean, back in the day, we didn't have electricity, right? Back in the day, electricity, the whole idea of it sounded like, my gosh, what are you crazy people thinking about? And what are you doing right here, right? We had a lot of that, and I totally understand. I have gotten to a place where I have a little bit different insight. The platforms and things I'm going to talk about today, I have been on. I have a unique experience. I am not telling you anything what to do. What I want to do is just, I wasn't going to talk on this stuff, right? Because as I have gotten older, I have pulled back a lot since 2020. I used to be a major voice, particularly on LinkedIn, that would talk about all topics and all things and all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, there's consequences to that. There's backlash, right? There's people needed my voice. I had people coming after me of, we need the St. Marie voice right here because of this or that or whatever. You have an obligation. I just turned 57. I no longer have an obligation to speak. I have a want to speak for particular people and causes and ourselves and humanity. I have an interest for my children who are, someday maybe going to have children in the world. I have an interest for you and us seeing things in a little bit different way. And so that's why I have taken my time to take it all in, to be able to see. And I do not have 50 shades of gray. I do not have a shades of gray between, I was raised with very black and white thinking. There were no shades in between, but I also don't think there's 50 shades of gray. I think there is a whole lot of technicolor. I think there's a whole lot of simultaneous. I think there's a whole lot of, I don't have to hate you or make you wrong for me to be able to, whatever it happens to be. So this is what I'm going to do today in this live. I'm going to give you a 10,000-foot view of giant media, because if you're not paying attention, this is super important. Only because then you make your own decisions, right? Same as electricity. It's powerful, it's exciting, we need it sometimes. Other cultures don't use it. That's okay. It's totally okay. But it is way better to know what's going on in the world. What are my opportunities? Where are some dangers? But also here's an incredibly powerful place. And as always, I'll tell you, I'm speaking as an American, happen to be a woman in the United States of America as a citizen. I also am, because on the Global Committee for Real Estate with Naples Area Board. They're not endorsing this at all here, but I'm just telling you, I have a global perspective of a lot of things and how it impacts us. And particularly today, I'm going to speak about the United States, why I made some decisions that I made that were a little shocking to people, and we'll see what ends up playing out about them. So join me for the recording, but let's do this thing. So here's the piece. The very first part is that if you think this doesn't impact you, because I just use social media a little bit, or I'm not on social media. Do you have a phone? Do you have a device that is probably near your body and mind and connected a lot of times, even if you put it down? I mean, we're talking about platforms and things, and yet actually your phone, with all the different companies and things going on in it and whatnot and stuff, has a whole lot more impact than probably a lot of things we're going to talk about today. So my attitude is just a little bit sassy. Get over your attitude of, I'm not on social media. I wasn't on that platform. I don't, whatever. Because if you want to pay attention to what's happening with the world and how communication has changed and what's become a weapon, that's my stance. Platforms have become a political weapon, not party wise, but also globally. And I want to teach you a little bit about that. So this whole idea of, oh, it doesn't really impact me. I invite you to look at every single time there's an update in your phone or your computer, the privacy settings change, right? It's not just about these couple of companies I'll talk about today. It's business, it's platforms, it's whatever. And they pretend they're taking care of our privacy. They're not. They're not. We consent. I consent. I mean, I did because they have access to my phone and they have access to my limited to my photos. But yes, somebody can hack me, and all these kind of things are a full genre of yes. Yes. So anyway, here's where we're going. It's not actually about the media, really. Media being Facebook, TikTok, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Snapchat, what any of the apps we want to mention, right? It's not really about the media, nor the media further to news media. The media is access. That's their in to you. So media is really the access. It's not actually about the media. And that's the important part that you need to get. So that is the access to you. However you feel and whatever your choices and whatever your beliefs are, that's just the entry point. It's like your front door, if that helps you. It's like your back door. It's like your bedroom door. It's like your kitchen into your home, into your brain, into your mind, into your people. This is not a gloom and doom conversation. This is just a big view of, wow, I see that. And oh, that's interesting. And I hadn't connected that part. And then exciting towards the end that I will get to for you. But this is a thing, as I had said to you, it is a political weapon, all of these things. So specifically, we are going to talk today about the TikTok ban. We are going to talk about Meta. We are going to talk about X. I am, for today's purpose, going to leave out LinkedIn, YouTube, but I'll make a comment about them, right? What we're going to talk about is you just need to have an awareness. That's all that is. I'm not trying to give you a conspiracy theory. I'm not trying to weight you down with anything. You just need to, even grandma and grandpa and little kids need to understand all media is technically has the ability to be a political weapon in our country for other countries. Hello, yes. Because here's some pieces that have happened. India banned TikTok a long time ago. We understand. I actually am fortunate to have a lot of friends and have had clients that are of the Indian culture. And I understand why they did in India, right? We will talk about a couple of those different things, as well as you need to get your arrogant head up and realize our apps are in other countries. I mean, that allow us, and one of the giant, huge apps has access to half the planet on a monthly basis with information and stuff. Access. These are the things we need to be a bit aware of. And so here's the other thing. It is big business, big, huge business. So what you need to understand, scrolling, watching, or being one of my regulars, right, on LinkedIn or YouTube or somewhere else, media, particularly these giants. So we'll just talk today about, right, Meta and X and TikTok. They have the ability to be trillion-dollar businesses. And there's a whole lot more, right, that have the ability to be trillion-dollar businesses. It's not really about free speech. I mean, some of these things started and they like to tell you a marketing message, right? About, we give you your free speech and this is phenomenal. I mean, yes. And we do understand what we're doing. We're conceding some, right? And we're giving some. And I'm not paying to be a voice on here. I get to. And I understand, literally, I, as a content creator, am creating the platform. You or anybody who posts anything, you're creating the business. You're creating the platform. You are also somebody who is using, right? And so that is the game that we need to understand. But what you need to understand is the volume of 10,000 square feet is, I said square feet because I'm a realtor, 10,000 feet is trillion-dollar business is what we're talking about now. And I mean, Google's huge. I won't even talk about that so much today. But of course, we know when they have been for a while, right? Gaslighting us. Gaslighting, if you don't understand what that is, like I understand because of my background very well what gaslighting is. Gaslighting can absolutely make your reality feel completely confused, even if you're a normal, healthy child or adult. Gaslighting is when somebody will tell you one thing and then the next person will tell you the polar opposite. Gaslighting is when you know you have had this experience. I'm well aware that you said this. In fact, on this date and at this time, and here was the setting in which you said that. That's how I can get down to it. And then you tell me, no, I made that up. And I'm completely inaccurate about that. I can guarantee you I'm not. But they do it to try to alter your reality or confuse you, right? Or you don't know exactly what's happening, or, was that true or not? Or I don't trust myself, right? That's part of it. Here's the thing of your hijacking of your nervous system. And so this isn't necessarily, they did it with some nice dopamine, right? Like it's fun at the candy shop. It's fun to watch some of the things on social media, to post about your business, to whatever it happens to be. But they are not stupid. And this has been going on well more than 10 years, I'd say 15. I have watched my own aged children who are adults now, right, be on certain platforms for the majority of their impactful lives, from young teenagers to, getting towards the middle and higher 20s. It impacts them. It impacts me. It impacts you. And that nervous system jacking goes the range just like a movie, a really good movie, between fear and excitement and intrigue and what's going to happen. And it viscerally goes on in our body. If you don't think it does, let's hook you up to a little bit of monitoring while I show you some different things. It does. And part of that's exciting. Part of that's fun. Part of it, you're not trying to do anything bad, right? You're trying to learn something. Certain platforms are so much about learning, which is YouTube, right? Ironically, a lot of platforms, even like TikTok, were for learning different things, for entertainment, for sharing ideas and all that kind of stuff. But there's no question, and I've been on social media for years and years and years saying this, it has conditioned us to, just like a beautiful little drug, the dopamine in the fear roller coaster and the beauty, but also, right, good places that we can learn, that we can be motivated. We can, this is what's true of all things. Nothing is just black and white anymore. It's all technicolor. It all really was technicolor. Lots of it can be beautiful, right? But we're just going to understand part of these things. The strategy, I'm going to go back into these giants, is black sheep. We're going to call out the black sheep of the family. That's what we do. We say the black sheep is the wild, bad one. She, as an example, she's the one that gets on a motorcycle, right? With the guys when she's however old, right? We are going to say she's the one that doesn't follow the rules. She's the one that's disrupting what's going on. She's the one that doesn't sit nice and be quiet in the back of the pew and all that kind of stuff. You know what? Well, I'm busy telling you about the black sheep and the black sheep's bad. And in our example today, it's TikTok, and maybe they are. I don't know. I mean, we'll talk into it. There's also wolves in sheep's clothing right here in the United States. You are, by doing some of that, and again, I'll get into the full realm of this ban, you are forcing people, Americans in this case, into a platform or platforms they don't want to be on. That those platforms also have more violated their rights, done all these things that are not great, taken their information, impacted their children, these kind of things. And so you're busy calling out the black sheep, which maybe we need to adjust the black sheep, but I'm not saying that. And you'll be surprised at my Supreme Court decision of what I want to do the day before. But this is a thing. I'm not stupid and you shouldn't be stupid. There are wolf in sheep's clothing in these other media companies by far, let me tell you. And just because they're American or American citizens, and I love my country and I'm a patriot, not a party. That should all be looked at, not just one thing, right? But these things are what we're going to talk about, and they're super important. Too many people and companies and organizations and non-for-profits claim this ignorance about privacy of like, oh, I didn't really know that updated and they took all my phone contacts out of there. I mean, you're responsible for your phone contacts, nor do you want them, whoever them is, to have your phone contacts, right? We are, as I said, kind of the fun dopamine of whatever. Don't tell me that there's people that are just on TikTok that are enjoying the fun and the skits and the recipes and of it, and they're not the same, different, similar type of person on Facebook doing the same dang thing, or Instagram. That's not true. So it's just whatever their fun and addiction is, or if you sensibly use the platforms and control your time and whatever, super for you, right? But this is what I want to point out to all of us today. And I'm going to do it in a good and sensitive and wild and then positive way. All of us with our phones, myself included, you are guilty just as much to get in the backseat with a drunk driver and go, I don't have any responsibility. I'm not driving. Like, I wasn't driving. I just had a good old time and I got in the backseat of the what, you know? You're still responsible. You're still responsible because you chose to get into the environment for yourself and others on the road, right? So the same thing is true of our phones, of us making choices and being aware. However, there's also power and opportunity in being able to do that, right? So these points I want to bring up. Here's where I'm going to get into some things I have not said and talked about, and I'm just not going to be shy about saying. None of this, what's going on right now, is a surprise. This didn't just happen. This meaning, this is very interesting. These media giants in particular, which happen to be right now, TikTok and Meta and X. It's so interesting to me because right now they are very much in a place where they could be a super impactful voice, particularly if they get together. And, maybe you got to grease a little hands to do that, but I mean, that's politics. You pay whichever party is the business deal. Like, I mean, there's tons of business over time. I've done that all the time. What's the big deal? Like, what's the big deal? The difference, and again, I'm a patriot, not a party, is it doesn't matter who's in office as our president. It is just when we have the ability in modern time to be such a huge conglomerate of media that is free flowing, media that is checked or not checked, and I'll get into that is going into the individual human beings of all ages as their main feeding media, right? That has a lot of ability to have super impact like we've never had before. If you're old enough to take yourself back to the 70s when we used to have a television without a remote, you only got the news at certain times and you only got cartoons on Saturday. It was very controlled. It was incredibly controlled. And our government in the United States used to be very careful about what its free-ranging, flying around citizens used to see and hear and know. On one hand, I'll go so far to say that's when it kept us safe to some extent, right? Like, we were unknowing of a lot of things, but it also was trying to keep us safe because we did not have all this media with every individual user with a phone or a computer that could put stuff out there. And I saw this, here's my evidence. Did you know this happened? We're going to band together a bazillion of us. We're going to band together globally. This is the world we have now. So those things can make a great, big, huge difference. Point being, we aren't looking for bombs anymore. Your media can be a new political weapon. Your media can be a new bomb, not to scare you, but just to have you have some beautiful awareness of, now that was a lot of the accusations of TikTok, right? Of like, you are feeding these people and you're feeding our teenagers and you're, okay. And I'll get into it. And the evidence is like not shown in court, but whatever. We'll get into some of these pieces. And at the same time, I trust certain things. I just don't want overreach, right? So here we go. Because it is big business, every single one of these platforms will tell you, because it's marketing. I mean, it's marketing. I sell real estate, and I have to tell you, both I thrill and love and enjoy it. And then I also get paid to tell you, look at this great house. I'm not going to talk you into it because I'm not that kind of realtor, but look at this great house. And then if you buy it, I end up getting a paycheck on that. You understand that. Sometimes we don't know. And that's why some of our media started to have much more disclosures and awarenesses and things like that, which are good and we all need, okay? But it's big business. Here's the thing on world impact. Depending on what's being said, we understand this. Going back to 2016, media can have an impact And then we were busy looking at what they said was this black sheep, which it might have been a black sheep, and it was in the United States. But then were you also watching perhaps this other piece of that was an American company that then now from 2016 and then paid in 2020, Oracle gets a whole lot of payout in money because, and then you look back and go, well, how was that tied? Or what was that tied? Or what was happening? A lot of things as we're trying to move this big media and make decisions and stuff like that, you also do have to just take a look at how did this business connection happen? How do I feel about that business connection? Who's benefiting from that business connection? How do I feel about that? Right? And I'm in Florida, it's so hot. And there are consequences. There are consequences for this big business, big media. Consequences doesn't mean it's bad. Consequences doesn't mean it's bad. When I was a kid, I used to hear that and go, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. Like, what am I? Consequences can be good or bad. Consequences can be amazingly phenomenal, right? But you just need to know this. So I was a former high school marketing teacher way back in the day. I have always loved, and it's intriguing to me and interesting to me, marketing, communication, advertising, and all of that kind of stuff. Social media has become much more, right? For the most part, this free media, which is amazing because gosh, back in the day, I mean, it's 40 grand for a website and it's like $1 bazillion for an ad of wherever it was. And, I was that accidental dancing realtor on TikTok. I accidentally, when my kids, I was so never going to touch that thing. I was so never going to touch it because I thought, we're going to die if you touch that app. My children went to college. A lot of you know this story, some of you don't. My 3 kids went to college. And when my last one went, I was like, oh my gosh, in the winter, it's cold, it's dark, it's gray. I don't know what to do with myself. I need to challenge myself. I've been a speaker since I was a young kid. I want to at least try this thing that you don't speak on at that time. It was trends and it was 7-second trends. And I had no clue how to use the thing. Like I didn't know how to push a button. I didn't know how to make a thing. I didn't know what was awful or what was good. My first one, I mean, obviously I still have my phone and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was to a Tone Loc song. All right. And I mean, I was in high school in the 80s. Long story short, over, 2020 to 2024, December of 2024, I mean, I amassed millions of views and, 16 some thousand followers. I could have had a whole lot more, but I chose to block and eliminate and whatever. I do the same thing on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, most anybody can follow me, but I'll block you. And much, much, much fewer are an actual connection because I use that platform as in, are you really somebody I would possibly recommend to somebody? And I want to be careful about that. Okay. So I became this person in my 50s. That's the only thing that's interesting about that. This person in my 50s that, originally way too old to be on the platform. So my first comments were like, grandma can't dance, right? Whatever. And that was their nasty comment. 2 amazing, interesting, good people. And how I used TikTok from day one was the first 3 years, I didn't make any comments on there. I didn't make any comments because I didn't want to interact because I was a little nervous about it. So I just wanted the creative medium of challenging myself on humor, inspiration, laughter, make you think, maybe teach you something with my street smart without actually saying it to you. For 3 years, I didn't comment. I would take those TikToks and I would put them over on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Back in the day, that was shocking on LinkedIn. And I just, if you know me at all, mine is to just lots of times be the anti in the feed. Right. So I'm just whatever anybody's doom and glooming about, I'm going upstream and That's just kind of my style. And then the last year I started commenting and things, right? And just on the front side. So I don't direct message on there and all this kind of stuff. We come up to this ban, which I'll get into further, but I never meant to, but this was my background that enabled me to go, whoops, here's kind of where I happen to be. Here's now what I'm going to say that my family knows, right? And just, 1 or 2 close people. Here's the part. And why I don't share some of this stuff is because I don't really want all this coming at me. I'm careful about what I share because I work with a lot of people. I love a lot of people. I choose to stay more purple. It doesn't mean you don't care. So anybody comes at me in particular that says I don't care, oh my Lord, help me. You better know me personally if you're saying that to me because you're so wrong. right? Purple sometimes means it's harder on me. I care more. And I'm doing the tougher thing than what you're doing by. So anyway, here's was my personal choice at the minute. That's what I can say. We knew the ban was coming, right? And we knew, we knew for a long time, actually, 6-8 months. And here's the thing. I did not ever make $1 from TikTok, but I did certainly absolutely, and it is impacting me, make money from taking those TikToks and using them on another platform, and it produced real estate clients. Okay. So that it does absolutely impact me. It was a decision on principle for myself at the minute, not to anybody else. But it does absolutely impact me. So it was, I chose to do what I felt was right regarding myself as a business person and a creator at the minute. So the day before the Supreme Court when they're hearing the response, I chose to deactivate both my accounts. So I deactivated a real estate account on TikTok, and I deactivated a Sherry St. Marie personal account. Between the two, I had about 16,000 people, and I didn't say anything because I thought I was going to get banned. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to kind of wait and see what the Supreme Court says. Okay. And when the Supreme Court, when I'm listening live, here's the thing, and I'll say it out loud. The defense was terrible, in my opinion, on TikTok. I mean, the defense lawyer for TikTok, I don't know the person personally, I'm listening, right? And their defense is this whole thing on freedom of speech, that it's blocking freedom of speech if we would not have it here. That wasn't a smart legal defense, in my opinion, because here's why. A foreign entity doesn't have any freedom of speech rights in the United States of America. It doesn't. Like, that's true of all things. I'm not picking on TikTok. It doesn't. You don't have, if you're a US citizen, you have the freedom of speech rights, right? But also, most people misunderstand that freedom of speech. Freedom of speech does not mean ever, I can just say what I want to say. You don't have that right. You don't have that right. So a lot of people really confuse that. Anyway, for the legal portion of TikTok's defense, they should have picked a different strategy, and I know what I would have done, but I won't say that part. Second of all, for the creators, they were trying to say, well, they are losing their freedom of speech. No, they're not. Because first of all, as an American citizen, you are not guaranteed freedom of speech anywhere you want to. So think about this. You're claiming that you are losing your freedom of speech rights, but you're on a business platform. Forget that it's social media. It doesn't really matter. You're on a business platform that is owned by a foreign concerned entity, foreign adversary. Okay. You don't get to do that. Why in the world would you think you get to do that? Like, that sounds just crazy, right? Like, I get to get in business with China and say all these horrid things of whatever it is I want to say about whatever I want to say. We don't get to do that. And so that legal defense was like, what were you thinking? Honestly, the piece that made me know I'm not going back on, I'm retired. And I'm not, completely sure, but okay, here's the outplay of that. It happened to be Justice Sotomayor. I don't make a plan. So when I say a name to you, I'm trying not to say names, but I'm not meaning party or anything. She did a good job of saying directly to the TikTok lawyer, explain to me how this is not about association. That's why you can't sell it. And here's where the end was for me, where I'm retired. And it was this. The TikTok lawyer said, well, I can't argue with you about the freedom of speech piece, right? Because there are some truths to that, of some concerns. However, and I get it, there's not evidence at this minute, there's potential too, right? But I mean, that's like, you're building a bomb, and so we're aware of it, but you're not using it. But like, could you? I mean, these are things that the United States or any country for their own people need to be looking at and concerned about. Just because I make a ton of money on that foreign entity situation, like, that's another dumb argument. Like, I get it, because it's heartbreaking. There was a ton of people made a ton of money on TikTok or through it or whatever. Again, I didn't make money direct on it, but it certainly did make me money in real estate. But the argument of, but I get to be on a foreign entity because it makes so much money. That sounds like a teenager trying to argue for, the car or to go on a date. And they're like, really got a bad argument. I'm like, okay. So anyway, here's what the TikTok lawyer said back. He admitted, if you go listen, that they are not TikTok and the China portion, so ByteDance, 20% plus a certain percentage, they don't exactly say, of the 20% of the TikTok employees that are associated with that, not the 7,000 of the US, are not willing to give up the association. That's why they can't, won't, and whatever. And that's fine that they won't sell it. That's fine. They get to have their own policies and stuff, but you're operating in the United States. So for me, those two things made me go, okay, I'm on a hold. Let's fast forward, right? So I didn't get the update when it went dark, and one of my family people had to show it to me. And what was said was actually not accurate in fair information. So what it said, and not everybody got to see it, was, this is so great. And it's a CEO show, and I do like him, and he has done a great job on a lot of different things and helping us understand it better. But what the message said was, thank you to President Trump. Now, please understand, remove Trump for me and just say US president, because it could have been any administration. Okay. So the president of the United States has said, you can have TikTok. TikTok's back up. Thank you so much. That's not actually what happened. What actually happened is our current president signed an executive order for 75 more days. Do you see the misinformation even just right there, how that was communicated? At a bare minimum, it should have said, thank you. We've been able to work with, they have allowed us a 75-day executive order that allows us to stay up for this period of time. Fast forward further, and why I didn't do this live right away and waited a little bit. Apple and Google are not going to update the app, right? Legally, they couldn't. So you started to hear things like, former President Biden, so take away Biden and just go former president, said, because it was like the day before this new president would take over, said that new president, respectfully, transfer of power, is going to decide what to do. But again, it ends up being the gentleman's name of whatever is the case. And really it was, geez, we shouldn't be deciding. In my opinion, our Supreme Court shouldn't have seen this hearing as the most important of our lives at this time in this country, that it's TikTok that they took the time to do this thing for or whatever. But this is what happened. So that's not accurate. Apple has decided this many days later. So it did, go dark on the 19th, actually, not the 20th. I'm sorry, the 18th, the night of the 18th. And then it came back up the day before. Apple has decided it will not go back up in the App Store. You may not update it at all until it is sold to a US entity, until China sells their portion. That's their business stance on it. There's reasons. So let's go to this. I totally understand TikTok was concerned about, boy, if we stay alive, we want an assurance, and they wanted that from the past president. We want an assurance that we won't get in trouble for staying up after the ban. If you are a business and if you are a lawyer, you have to understand you can't take that risk, right? So political chatter happens on social media. One side says, oh, that's a threat and a ploy from TikTok to whatever. No, it wasn't. I do understand. They have to go, can you give us assurances we're not in trouble because you enlisted a ban, and now you're saying, oh, we're not going to do anything about it. We need to know you're not really going to do anything about it. But a president can't say, oh, I'm really not going to enforce a law that's a law, whatever. And then the new one's saying, let's take some time and let's see, what's going to happen. So a lot of those pieces are mine, in that Apple can get in trouble when they are in this waiting stage of not knowing, is it going to be okay? Is it not going to be okay? You have individual businesses making decisions on what do we need to do for our own selves for liability, rightness of however they feel as a company and all those kind of things. Us regular users don't necessarily know this stuff unless you pay attention, unless you pick up some of these pieces, unless you listen to some, things like this and whatever. So I just want to help you understand that. Let's talk about the reality of TikTok, and the reality of ByteDance is what they're really talking about, not necessarily TikTok. It's the ByteDance of TikTok. And so if you're a TikToker, and if you don't, you don't. Here's the deal. So TikTok was actually founded originally as ByteDance. It was a dance app. of like silly dances, whatever. You've seen some of the trends on TikTok. That's what some of that was. Like they were much more actual dancing than the shenanigans of the dancing realtors, and not even good dancing that you've seen of late in the last couple of years. But that was ByteDance. The founder of ByteDance, which is also evolved into TikTok, is Chinese. It's a Chinese entrepreneurs with an S, so more than one. Okay, so that's who originally founded it. 60% of TikTok is owned by global, is the legal word, global industry investors. One of the top ones is actually BlackRock. BlackRock is a US company. If you do not know them, go look them up. They are one of a chunk. We don't know how much of the chunk. Sometimes I make big points on purpose. So, a chunk of whatever is like, so 60% of global investors, which are both US and other places around and stuff, right? But I mean, we've always had global investors in things, and in some countries and not, and whatever. But, and you question, do I care? Do I not care? What does that mean, right? 20% of the entire company of TikTok is owned by the founders, right? So that was those original Chinese founders, entrepreneurs that developed the app. 20% is owned by TikTok employees. Listen legally to this, of which 7,000 are US-based employees. But how much of the 20%, which is not the 7,000, are who? Like, you're an employee, but like, I mean, who are you and where do you live and what's your citizenship? And like, we don't know, right? In just fair arguments. The TikTok is absolutely not owned by the government or any state in terms of ownership of that entity. And there are 5 board members, 3 of which are US based, and 1 in Singapore and 1 in Hong Kong. I share these things with you just so that you can kind of understand. Here's what's a little bit important about this giant. TikTok is an entertainment app. So TikTok, as a registered company, is an entertainment app. Do you understand some of our news media is now becoming, and is registered and has been for years and years and years, as entertainment, not as media, functional media. And the word media is used for social media now, including like VaynerMedia and all this kind of stuff. Some of the stuff you have to understand because it makes a difference in your comprehending kind of what is happening and whatever. But so TikTok is registered as an entertainment company. It absolutely started that way. It was, skits and dances and all this kind of stuff. It evolved into wanting to certainly inspire, help people laugh, educate, right? There's recipes on there. You can learn about, ideas and things for your kids, any of those kind of things you want to do, but it's evolving. And so about a year or so ago, it evolved into also talking rather than all the trend videos that I really started on and was kind of my goof around thing. It became talking videos because they want to compete with YouTube. Google owns YouTube. They wanted us talking longer and giving opinions and all that kind of stuff. And everybody that has anything to do with TikTok has to follow US law in the United States, just as Meta, Zuckerberg, has to follow whatever laws are in whatever country he's operating in. And again, on a monthly basis, his platforms with an S, multiple, 1/2 of the planet see on a monthly basis. That's giant, right? So this is the thing. It really was not this thing about necessarily regulating free speech. It's about access. It's about access to individuals and people. Of course, we want to be concerned about our children, right? Of their minds and all that kind of stuff. But here I'll tell you a little more forwardly about TikTok in particular. The US Supreme Court absolutely said in their live response, they do not have a problem with TikTok at all. They don't, TikTok, the app, they don't have any problem with it. Guess what? It is the largest self-containing, self-activating, which is different than any other app. Somebody gets lost as a runner, and I appreciate it. A woman gets taken as a runner on a path. TikTokers band together in 2 seconds. They got evidence, they're sharing, they're reposting, they're whatever, they activate. Very different than another platform. And they've been able to find evidence, find videos, share this or that or whatever, right? That solve things or help people or whatever. They band together very quickly as a community of people. That's unique, as I said. But here's the thing. So a lot of times what the concern is, right, honestly, and it's been said by one of our political representatives, which I won't say the name, part of the issue was that there's a large number of young people on TikTok, right? I'm not a big advocate for teenagers on apps because it's just not healthy for them. It really isn't. However, people that are millennial Zs, let's say now, that they found a voice. They got a tool that they can use and activate and learn things and decide what they think and all that kind of stuff. The big pieces were really a large part of it was comments or opinions about the Gaza war. And it is one of the largest apps that is about women's reproductive rights, they called it, which I would highly say that's not the right term at all for it. It is women's health care. If you know anything about, some of the medical dangers and things, both from very young children, female girls, to older women, of pieces like that. And that was concerning. Those are some of the real reasons that some of it has been, put towards the ban, and a lot of misinformation, a ton of misinformation. Because guess what? There's so much misinformation on media. So much misinformation. And then we sometimes by accident, because we thought it was okay, we repeat it and we whatever. This is the world we're living in. This is the world we're living in. And so it doesn't have to feel scary to you. It can be really amazing when you understand things and make choices for yourself and use some of these things for good and decide what you're not going to do. And that's okay, right? Just want to make sure that I miss anything. Here are other big players, right, that I won't necessarily talk about today, but you just go back to, okay, who are these giants, right? So I'm mentioning Meta, I'm mentioning X, and mentioning TikTok. LinkedIn, who owns LinkedIn? Microsoft. Who's Microsoft? Bill Gates. Google, obviously we can't forget the Google. I mean, Google was founded by 3 people who, my gosh, amazingly in their young age, used to be PayPal employees and figured out how to create this thing called Google, right? So 3 gentlemen that end up being that, and the whole Google family at this minute. Those are all pieces that are really going to change our arena going forward for the way our world is and all of that kind of stuff. So if you think this whole debate of we can't have TikTok and whatever you think is really happening with that, if you think that did not force American citizens to apps they don't want to be on, that are just as dark, that are just as bad practicing, and I do not mean we're excusing the foreign entity issue, because I do think that's important to be looked at. But it is because of that choice, it then pushes, right, to apps we don't necessarily want to be on, myself included. And then we swing back, right, and we take a look at, well, who's making all the political donations and has been for a long time, to whomever the candidate is, right? But in particular right now, these are the big, giant, huge players. And then the ability to amass such giant media like that, or particularly ever for X or Meta to buy TikTok, if it even is for sale, and it's not for sale. So this is a ridiculous conversation, but whatever. You create a monopoly. And you create a scary monopoly over information and media, right? So I do not personally think this can happen. However, this whole thing of when there was so much push and political towards away from the TikTok, right? It benefits. There's no question flipping about it. It benefits massively Meta and maybe X. I don't know. I'm not going to talk as much about X because I am not on that platform. I was on there when it was Twitter for 17 days. One of my bankers said, oh my gosh, it's like a cocktail party. Sure, you'd be so great on there. Like it's just snappy comments and whatever. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll try it, but it seems kind of mean to me. I'm on there, end up getting booked on a worldwide platform for a talk show, and I was off because it's just not my thing. So I'm not going to share, details necessarily about that because I'm not personally firsthand knowing as a content creator about that. But here's the point. When you're pushing us to different giant media because it's American, that doesn't mean necessarily that that's good. But this is the point. These are different forms of cancel culture. We've learned cancel culture could be right by boycotting a store, which then affects their employees and all these other things. So cancel culture can be very dangerous. Cancel culture can also go further into things like this, right? And so we just have to have a little bit of education and awareness. But here's the thing. Followers are one thing, and we appreciate that. And I don't love that term because I just feel like it sounds arrogant to say that, but followers are one thing where you're going to make these decisions, understanding your phone, what's going on, how all these dollars are at stake, how your mind is for stake, all this stuff. Content creators, influencers also, but I'll say content creators, which are different. Content creators have to make a decision. The greatest thing that we need to understand, whether you're an influencer or content creator, is that we build our name on a platform we don't own. I mean, if you think Instagram can never go down, don't learn anything from this example right here. I get so many people go, well, that's never going to happen to us. Like we can't. Do you want to know something? Life is always evolving. And so 5 years down the road, there might be something that is gone for whatever reason, right? That is what happens with platforms and social media and life and all this stuff. So a content creator needs to make their own decisions about where they want to put out content, where they feel comfortable enough, I'll say, because if you think I was totally fine with TikTok, I wasn't. If you think I'm totally fine with Meta, I absolutely am not. I don't like it. But you have to make choices about, okay, now what am I going to do? And where do I think I feel okay, right? Or there's a lot of chatter, right, about LinkedIn, but it's a huge, important platform for myself. And so I make some choices with some of those pieces. Just going to move us ahead. Oh, I just lost my page here. 1 second. Sometimes this happens when you're live. Here's the part that we're going to start getting positive about. And it is exciting. It's exciting. Here's the point. Right? So some of this stuff can make us nervous. Others of it can make us mad. Some of us gives us opportunities, right? It helps us clarify. Sometimes being uncomfortable helps you clarify, and that's okay. And that's a good thing. I want to choose to use social media. I do not want it using me. That's why I stay educated and informed, and I sit kind of on a side thing of like, I don't know how this goes. And half the time I ride it sideways, right? Or I jump on the horse and I just take off and I don't even really know how to use the thing, right? That's been my brand. I want to be able to use social media. And there is an important, good point to be able to do that. It doesn't matter if everybody understands what you're doing. So my core people absolutely understand. My core people totally get it. They even get my style and my brand and my whatever. They get that it's evolving. They get that right now I'm deciding, oh gosh, how exactly should I switch it up? On LinkedIn today, I put a post of a couple different photos, right? And one of them on purpose is, one of them's like me, the fun, right? With the donut inner tube with the, business is sweet, give me a call. That's my technically usual. And the next one is a very gorgeous, buttoned up, but beautiful Naples luxury, because I can do that too. That's more of where people would like to see me switch to. And so it's this learning to go, do I want to? Should I? Am I ready? Is that my good thing? Am I going to miss parts of my voice? What are these pieces? But these are a lot of what people are choosing about social media right now. And what exactly do you want to do and what do you not want to do? But here's what's exciting. I always have something that's exciting, right? Sometimes it takes me a little while to kind of shift this out and wait for weeks like I have of just, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And then what are we going to do? And then how does this look? And I hear a whole lot of things and decide kind of how do I feel. Lots of times walking in the ocean helps me. But here's the thing. The one thing that's always been massively exciting about social media, particularly if you are a creator, but also if you are a watcher, is the fact that it gives one person, wherever that one person can get the tool, in whatever country or place or something, it gets that one person without essentially the barrier of cost, right? Because there's super low cost of financial entry. But of course, there's costs that are sometimes different and higher. So I always point that out. These platforms are free. We get on them and whatever, but we're paying, right? Because we're giving our information, we're giving our content, we're giving our, there's a cost. But literally to think about, I can be an educator or I could be a realtor with just a phone, and I work for a global company. And I can very easily, without putting bazillion bucks in, make something, have a voice, give some feedback, any of those kind of things. That is incredibly exciting, very encouraging, provides an awful lot for an awful lot of people if you don't necessarily understand it. And so here's the important switch out. We're going to do a couple switch outs towards the end. This is it. Social media used to be about share what you want, whether that's a comment, you're a creator, you're a watcher, whatever. It used to always be about share what you want, even if you're a business, right? Share what you want. Social media is now about interest. The whole thing that's running social media right now is interest. Whatever the interest is for the creator to put out. Interest. Not they're putting out what they want. Like that creator's putting out what they're interested in. I highly doubt that creator's putting out just what they want to, because whatever they even wanted to, it's what they're interested in, right? All the attention, all the money, all the time, all the everything is on interest now. Everybody wants to talk about the algorithms, and yes, the algorithms are doing something on each of the platforms, right? That's what they're doing. But also, and that's what everybody misses in mainstream, you, the person scrolling, including myself, are the one that's showing what you're interested in. And that's also why that's what shows up on your feed, right? That's also a piece of that. And so this is a major switch up for us when it comes to social media. And I think it's important to point that out to everybody. Here's the thing I've talked about a couple times, but here's the numbers. So Meta, you just got to grasp this, like in volume and what's going on. And now, of course, Zuckerberg's taking a whole lot of crap because he's coming out with his hair a little bit longer, a little bit curly, wearing a gold chain, like he's, I don't know what, just a different guy, because it used to be just the black t-shirt, right? But he has 3.2 billion viewers daily, which amount to half the planet. And he gives just the smirky smile, half the planet monthly. That also includes WhatsApp. WhatsApp, I'll tell you, and I see a comment coming, I'll come grab you. WhatsApp, just so you know, this is what's funny to me. So like I'm in the global space about real estate. Everybody who's international that tries to talk to me about WhatsApp will go, oh, it's encrypted, Sherry. We can't see anything. It's totally good, blah, blah, blah. They aren't watching it. Baloney. I knew it right from the beginning. Chris is going 57. I know I'm 57 now. It's just crazy. But yes, and Chris has got a lot of great comments. How I know Chris is a business owner from LinkedIn. He's up in Illinois, and I originally is Middleton, Wisconsin, right? And then also he's in Sarasota, and I'm in Naples, and so that's awesome. He's in an insurance industry, insurance type products, and so he's also dealing with a lot of the tech and calls and all those kind of things is what he is commenting about. So thank you for that, and I appreciate you showing up, Chris. But here's the thing, all this stuff super impacts. And so here's the sentence. The words trusted media has fallen off a cliff. I think that's really fair to say, right? I think it's fair to say with news media, social media, media. It's just trust from the consumer, from the watcher, because consumer means you're buying something. Watcher is you're just watching, you're not necessarily purchasing something. That would include everybody, right? The lack of trust that people have in media, as they should question, has fallen off a flipping cliff. And we just have to look at that. And I think it's really good and important. But here's what's important. You do have to be careful. And it's just the way it is over lies. Who knows what the lies are? Because it's like, who decides what they're saying, right? Back in the day, we used to have actual facts of something, propaganda, whatever that happens to be, with a smoke show, and scams for sure. And I can absolutely attest to that. Like there definitely needs to be more done on scams and people hijacking our accounts and people pretending to be us, right? That are not us and all that kind of stuff. And these bad actors, like that's an important piece that we just need to look at. But here's another piece I want to bring up to you as we're looking at, the TikTok thing and how do we feel about that and what should or it should never be back again and all this kind of stuff. EU over time has taken in 30 billion in fines to American tech companies. My point in saying that to you is it's the number's big, so I got your attention, right? Hi. Here's what's important about that. That also means hello, that we our tech companies don't have the best brand in other countries either. They think we're the enemy. So, and I mean, they find, and I also would point out, profited hugely beautifully also from American tech companies. So if you're going to be spitting at the party, let's also be aware that other people, have kind of a dirty look at at us as well. A little bit of awareness. So here's an important point. There's no American hero in $1 trillion of media industry. There's no American hero. There's no American hero. They are trillions of dollars of media businesses. So there isn't anybody, there's no white horse of any of these companies that are coming to save you no matter what they tell you. Meta's not coming to save you. X is not coming to save you. LinkedIn is not coming to save you. YouTube is not coming to save you. None of them are American heroes. Some of them are cleaner than others, perhaps. I mean, right? Others of them perhaps are a little bit more questionable in what's going on. It's not my place to decide that. It's yours and what you choose to use and do with media, right? For sure. But there is no American hero. And so as we discount, and I do understand the association of foreign adversary, as we discount, we also need to realize this whole thing of, right, doesn't mean they're necessarily brilliant in our own backyard. So here's something of why this whole fight and interest in what we're doing, and anybody who uses it, whether you are a small creator or not, or a follower or a user just every Tuesday for 10 minutes, fabulous. Here's the part of why this all matters and why the attention of these giants needs to matter, and why for every single person using it, I mean, there's a bright spot. Here's where all the attention, money, ideas, and is sitting. Tech and social media is a bright spot for Americans' ability globally. I hope you see that. That's a lot of what's going on. That is a lot of what's going on. Think about talent and how we have changed. As back in the day we were farming, right? Very few people are farming right now. We need them terribly. But that used to be like everybody's livelihood. It isn't anymore. Then it was manufacturing, right? Then it was, right, the information age and whatever. We're in the age of tech and social. Not social, hi, how are you? I love you. I mean, some of it is like that, but social media, media brands, all that kind of stuff. We are in the space of that is one of the biggest fights for the talent about it, the building of it, the ability to make funds, to protect, to use, to whatever. And it's the battle for talent among countries. This is exciting. This and a couple other things I've said is what keeps me out here, of that one little content creator from a tool, whether I'm just making a difference or, hopefully making $1. And this part of that's what's going on, is that the ability for a tech global giant, not just as one, I'm speaking of the United States of America, that is what this is. And so that's important, I think, for everybody to understand. We are at this huge sea of change, both in the way we socially and culturally live. And that is super important. I think a lot of times when you're sitting, on your living room or on the beach, like I do, or whatever else, sometimes we don't necessarily know and understand these things. And so even though I'm long talking, because I can on LinkedIn Live and on YouTube, these things are important. They're important little pieces for you to grab, for you to decide how you feel. I'm not telling you have to see or believe any of those things. I'm just pointing out some different insights, right? Here's the concern. Here's the last couple of things I'm gonna do is just the concerns. And concerns don't have to be a bad thing, right? Concerns, some people would take a look at and go, ooh, there's a concern. I'm gonna offer an opportunity about that. Oh, I'm gonna make a difference for the concern we have here, right? And sometimes concern is a place to look and lock your doors about, right? So This is the big concern. One is for the individual human being. I have a huge concern for this. Concern doesn't mean to be a bad thing. Concern can be a beautiful thing. I'm concerned for the individual human. Just that they are good and fine, that it's not impacting them, that their mental wellness, because that's the best thing to protect, if you're going to be in media. But also for that individual, the concern is also there's great potential to be able to help that individual. What I have to be an advocate for, and I would not be doing a good job today if I didn't say, oh my gosh, myself and others I know, individual companies and creators and all that kind of stuff have made a massive impact for me. I have been given comments and notice and conversations that I know what I have done since 2009 has made a huge difference for the individual. Whoever that happens to be that was watching or interacting with me, my videos, comments, any of disrupt industry, my speaking, any of those things, right? And then we also have a concern for the collective consciousness of society. Ugh, those are big words. And obviously I care. We have an interest in the collective consciousness for society. Here's an example. We want to make sure that we are evolving, not going speed diving into a dumpster fire. We want to make sure that we are not putting out this consciousness that, as an example, we see where there's this viciousness online because I just want to take my feelings out on this keyboard with you. Other things like that of people's, information, their ability to decide information. I think that's certainly why you need to have multiple sources, not one source, right? But these are the things we're concerned about. The biggest concerns on a media platform themselves really essentially comes down to this misinformation piece, and just how that can impact somebody's mind or their decisions or their ability as a business or any of those things. And the question about the misinformation is who judges? Because I'm fair and balanced, I think, at this age. I wasn't necessarily younger, but I am more so now. This is the thing. We know there could be bias, even in fact checkers. There can certainly be biased. There can be interferers, right? In certain groups that you feel pressured to because they paid or sponsored or they, whatever. But also the whole idea of these community notes, I don't necessarily think is the greatest thing, because then all you're really doing is let people in the arena do this to each other. You know what I mean? So this is the question of how do we be careful about misinformation for our citizens specifically? And then two, how do we prevent hate speech? And hate speech, would also include the bullying that goes online, right? That can really, we have seen it detrimental to people. We are having an impact from some of this consumption long-term, and sometimes just a singular event or any of those kind of things. So it is no longer freedom of speech. Catch this. If you are a business, if you're a content creator, if you're a watcher, catch this switch. You are no longer freedom of speech. That's not what all this is about at all. Because of everything I've told you today, this is the difference. It is now about who are the people / creators, companies that you trust, and you can make decisions in this modern world we live in. Who do you trust? As the creators, the people, the whatever. But that's also why any of us that are creators need to not quit. That's also why we need to take a look at this for your own business and how you're operating and what you want to do given these things, right? Trust, I know globally is a huge thing. I know that from the real estate industry. Number one thing all of us are concerned about is, who am I doing business with and can I trust them? That has become a much more intense and global position than it ever has been. And also in our own country, for sure. And we have just a couple more and we are done. Give me 1 second here. Okay. This is what I wanted to share with you today. I know it's a lot of information. You guys are used to me being the 7-second funny, right? You're used to me being the family-friendly friend on social media, on Facebook. You're used to me being, sometimes the quick quiet on LinkedIn, and then sometimes this. I'm the full range, but I think that's also good. I'm somebody who, as a content creator, used to not care, and I'm just going to do whatever on any platform, and I'm just going to, because it also is a surprise in the feed, because you never know what you're going to get from me, has been my brand by accident. I am switching up a little bit to be a little bit more platform pure, which is hilarious for a creator with my style. But just a little bit more like, okay, Facebook is more family and friends, right? They can't necessarily handle my big thoughts topics. Not because they're not great individuals, but they're on a platform. Like, think about it. You're sitting in your living room on your TV channel, and then all of a sudden this super analytical, long talking bubble comes when you're like, I want to watch comedy, So that feels weird. On TikTok, they also can't handle my big thinking or personal advocacy or videos that I used to do both on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And so I'm just looking at which to go wherever, right? So that it feels okay on the platform. However, I will tell you, I do appreciate the ability to share more carefully some different insights and thoughts that sometimes make people upset, that people have different opinions about, and I get it. Again, I just like to culminate by saying you have to pay attention to what's happening in the world that you live in. You have to pay attention to society because we need to live in it, even if you isolate. We have to pay attention if you have to be out in big crowds. We have to pay attention because there's great opportunities, and we're building a world where there's still generations and generations of people that aren't even here yet, right? And so there is great, good opportunity. The good thing is deciding, how do you want to go about that? Do you want to go about that? What do you not want to do? And that's okay. So I appreciate you joining me today. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope it gives you a little bit of insight, a little bit of something to think about, and makes a difference in your life. Thank you.